It may include long walks on the beach, but there are definitely no serenades or gifts. In June, as the landscape on the Alaska Peninsula becomes fully awake after a long winter, amorous brown bears have more than food on their minds. The end result might be a new litter of cubs, but long before cubs are born, the brown bear mating season is a time marked by competition, conflict, communication, and risk. Hey everyone, this is Mike Fitz, your resident naturalist with Explore.org, the world's largest live nature cam network. Joining me today is Naomi Boak, a park ranger at Katmai National Park. Naomi, thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, happy to be here. Inside today in my office because as some of you may note, there are 55-mile-an-hour winds outside, and that would blow both me and the camera over. Not a good thing.
Well, glad you found a little bit of shelter there. It is pretty rough weather that we're watching on the cameras today. And bear cam season really has just begun on Explore.org. And we're focusing on the brown bear mating season during this live chat. So if you have questions about that topic, please drop those in the comments. And we'll try to answer at least a few of those during the broadcast today. And Naomi, June really is the peak of the bear mating season. And the salmon haven't arrived yet. So we might have a really great opportunity to watch some courting bears. Maybe we can begin by describing the courtship process. How do we know we're looking at a pair of courting bears if we see them on the cameras?
Sure. Well, courting seems like a very anthropomorphic term, but I think it works. It's appropriate for what we see on the cams. Typically, we see a male bear following slowly a female bear, maybe 20, 30 yards behind. And I think 856 is a real good example of this here, where he followed 410 for a long time. And another good example of that is 856 following 402 last year, which he did for almost 2 weeks. So courtship can be long for a bear, and the bear really does have to win over the female. And another instance that we saw last year was 856 when he was courting 402. He was at the falls, sitting in his usual place in the jacuzzi and fishing. And above him was a male bear that he was not happy about. And 402 was to his left on the bank. He looked up and is like, should I prove my dominance? Should I fish? Should I go after 402? And I think 402 won out on that one, and he pursued her. So that's part of the courtship behavior. Another great example we had last year of courtship was 747 following bear 482. I call this another, in an anthropomorphic way, salmon brunch on the lower river. And it looks really sweet, but it takes tenacity and persistence. Another thing that we see is playful behavior. And we saw that this year on Naknek Beach with bear 821 and bear 901. They were definitely courting, and this is what I call, in another anthropomorphic term, canoodling. And and this is part of the courting behavior. But courting for bears is not just wine and roses. The males sometimes have to defend their pursuit of a female in courting times, and they'll get into fights with other male bears to protect their pursuit. And I have never seen that fight, and I don't know if you have, Mike, but we certainly see evidence of that by seeing fresh scars on bears in this time of year. And for those of you who were watching the cams last night, there was an amazing close-up of bear 856 with a fresh wound on his neck. And thanks to that new camera and its high resolution and that close-up, you really got to see what a fresh courtship wound can look like. So courting, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of tenacity. It looks romantic and wonderful to us. But Mike, can you tell us more about mating season from the male bear's perspective?
Certainly, when we're watching the behavior of male bears during the mating season, we should always consider a couple of things. One is that the mating opportunities are limited for male bears, and another is that they don't help raise cubs. So for a male brown bear, reproductive success is really solely based on the number of offspring that a male can sire. And these facts create a great deal of conflict among male bears for mating opportunities, and it even influences their body size. Before we get, kind of into the specifics on bears, though, I want to consider and contrast some well-known, or at least some particularly classic examples of the ways that males can establish access to females when reproductive opportunities are limited. So we're going to look at a couple of different species here. For example, peafowl and wild turkeys. For example, peacocks, I mean, they're flamboyantly feathered. Those feathers are used as ornaments because their female counterparts are extremely choosy. And with those birds and also with turkeys, I mean, decorative feathers, in the way that males display them, demonstrate fitness to a female. So that's one way that you might be able to show to the opposite sex that you are a good suitor for siring offspring. Now, another way that birds and mammals will sometimes gain access to mating opportunities is by protecting territory. You can consider commonly seen birds like robins, for example. Male robins use song to defend their nest or to define their nesting territories, and then they'll drive away competing males from that space. And many mammals also defend territories too to protect access to food resources or access to mates. And in some cases, that can actually drive certain species to gain, for the males to gain huge body sizes because that gives them a competitive advantage. And one example I think that's really great to consider is elephant seals. They provide a clear example of how defending territory can pay big dividends. Male elephant seals establish and defend territory on beaches where females arrive to give birth. They mate at that same spot where females will arrive to give birth and wean their pups. And large bulls with the most stamina secure the most mating opportunities. And that really has led to an extreme difference in size between males and females. And you can see that in this image: a pup at the bottom, female in the middle, and then a male elephant seal at the top. And I bring these examples into the conversation to really contrast that with the adaptive fitness of male brown bears. We won't find male brown bears displaying for females like a turkey or defending specific territories like an elephant seal, but they definitely compete in their own ways, and body size plays a big role in that. Because again, remember, males have limited mating opportunities and they don't raise offspring. So really they just need to find access to those estrus females. And females devote a tremendous amount of energy to raising their cubs, but males are not taxed with that energetic burden. So males can really devote all of their energy into gaining body mass, and body size really does matter in the bear world. It provides a competitive advantage in the mating game, because if you're a bigger bear, you're probably at like 856 you were mentioning earlier, Naomi, or 747, you're very likely to be able to displace other bears from females who are experiencing that estrus cycle, and you need to guard your opportunity for that. And we can think about the journey of a male bear in early summer. We saw a little bit of video of 856 pursuing 410, but this is a video, a compilation of two bears. Number 128 Grazer, she's the blonde bear walking in front, and this is number 747. I took a little bit of this video from a crack in the door in the ranger station, not very far from where Naomi is sitting. And these bears, we saw them up and down the river, and this video was from 2015. So this will give you an idea of the persistence that's necessary for a male brown bear to have that mating opportunity. We'll talk about the female side of things in just a little bit, but 747 has to be on guard really this entire time, because again, another male is going to be looking for that mating opportunity. He's also really trying to habituate to the female to his presence, because for much of the year, he's a physical threat to her. So it may take time for the female bears to kind of get used to this really big guy following them. And you can see that there's, especially when they first start the court, there's a lot of uncertainty in that process. And also the female might not be in the right part of her estrus cycle to be receptive to mating. But certainly, when you see this behavior, you can think of that male really maybe of only having one shot at this. He can't count on another mating opportunity. So persistence, stamina are his assets. Defensiveness, possessiveness are also assets. He's got to defend access to grazer the whole entire time he follows her. Otherwise, he might be displaced from that. But Naomi, we're looking at, the male part of the equation here, but the females are the other part. Can you talk about the female perspective on this process?
Sure. I mean, I think it's from the female side a little more mysterious, maybe, which anthropomorphically we can talk about. But as Mike mentioned, females at this time who are by themselves, they are not taking care of cubs. They are in estrus, which means that they are physically receptive to mating, and that signal is given to the males. They smell it in their pheromones, and so they can potentially mate to have cubs, but the males have to prove themselves to females, and they really have to go through this courting process to calm the females down and win them over. And I think the big question is, men ask, what is it that women really want? And I ask the question, what is it that sows really want? Because is it a biological trigger that happens in the female where, after a while she becomes more receptive and ready to mate? Is it some kind of evolutionary factor where she's added all of these things together? She's gotten more comfortable with this bear and decided, well, this is a good mate for me. Or is she just worn down and it's time to mate? And these are very hard topics to research. So we're going to have to say, I don't know a bit during this conversation. But when the female does decide, okay, time to mate, then we are pretty sure, not 100%, that bears have what's called induced ovulation, which means the mating will induce the production of an egg. And also in bears, that egg is not going to implant in the uterus until much later in the season, and only if that female is fat enough and healthy enough to support the life of that cub. So, there are a lot of factors that go into this. Also, females, bears are promiscuous. We are not looking down on females for this. This is not a derogatory term, although I don't know why females are called promiscuous. But they do mate with more than one male, and they can also produce cubs in a single litter from more than one male. So mating season is a time that consumes a lot of energy for both males and female bears, and it's also a time where food resources are not really great. So Mike, do you want to talk a little bit more about this process?
Well, there's some, I think, some interesting behavior that we can look at beyond maybe like the obvious courting process. I mean, we focused a lot on that so far during the broadcast, but there's also behavior that we'll see on the bear cams that may not seem obviously linked to the mating season, but it's the more research that's done on brown bears and their behavior, it seems like it certainly is. And that's marking behavior. That's what I'm referring to. And what is marking behavior? That's really when a bear is, well, just marking a tree. So this is bear 856 here when he was courting a female several years ago, just marking a tree near her. We have another video clip available that we'll show here of the giant 747 walking to a tree. He'll also mark trees as well. And this is, you can see how fat 747 here is in the fall. And this is in the fall. So bears will mark vegetation throughout the year, but it really does seem to happen, at least with males, more often during the mating season. And the aftermath of this marking process really leaves the trees just battered. When you're walking around Brooks Camp, you will see the evidence everywhere. This is a picture of a spruce tree on Dumpling Mountain, branches broken, bark torn off. If you take a really close look at the bark itself, you will be able to find bear fur on there. And there's a bunch of competing hypotheses on why bears mark trees, although they're not mutually exclusive in any sense. It could be just because they're itchy. You know, they might have to scratch an itch, and I'm certain that happens on a lot of occasions. And bears just want to rub on a tree. But there's also some other things that happen as well. Most likely, is marking trees probably can communicate superior competitive ability. Scent marking really can convey a lot of info about the individual. Maybe the individual's physical condition or its genetic quality. Those are things that scientists really haven't teased out yet, but those are some ideas about why bears mark trees. And also, it could be a function to signal mates during the mating season. In 2017, there was a study from the Canadian Rocky Mountains looking at grizzly bears and how frequently they mark trees. And that study found that male brown bears rub on trees 60% more during the breeding season than the non-breeding season. Well, female bears, though, really didn't have any noticeable sort of trends in their marking or their rubbing behavior. So it definitely seems like males are doing it a lot more often at this time of the year during the mating season. And again, that's kind of like May. The peak is in June, and then we'll also see some of that in July. But there was a really interesting paper that came out this spring by Andrea Morehouse. I think she's out of the University of Alberta. So she was looking at hair samples from Southwest Alberta, Southeast British Columbia, Northwest Montana, grizzly bear hair samples. And she and her colleagues found that adult bears who mark trees more often are more reproductively successful. So she collected bear hair samples from marking trees. They were able to determine pedigree by using DNA analyzing the DNA from those hair samples. But then they took it a step further and they looked at how many hair samples were on certain marking trees, so they could kind of determine the number of rubbing events on these trees. And they found that the number of mates for a bear increased with the number of rub objects at which the individual was detected, at least in their words. And the same relationship was detected among female bears too. So in some, it seems like there really is a positive relationship between rubbing on trees and in mating success. We're still not sure how that works. It could be because bears have scent glands on their feet and their back. They have, and this is really kind of just like oily secretions that come out of their skin. They also have anal glands like a dog does, and that probably communicates with chemicals that code for sex, for example. And their urine. I haven't been able to find any research specific about like the chemical signals that is spread through bear urine, but almost certainly it carries some sort of signatures as well that communicate information to different bears. Because we see when bears pee on the ground, we see bears smelling that urine all the time, and I think that really says a lot to the bears. So when you're watching bears mark a tree, keep in mind that it's sometimes just to scratch an itch, but it also provides and conveys a lot of important information. We might not have the ability to translate it, but certainly bears can. And Naomi, we've discussed how the mating season, is a time of competition. It's a time of persistence. We talked about some of the adaptations that may make it successful and the chemical communication that happens there. But it's really also a time of uncertainty and danger.
Yeah. Well, one large topic about this time of year is infanticide, meaning the killing of bear cubs. And it seems to happen mostly during mating season. Now, it's also mating season is also before the main sources of food around, so that's a correlation. But infanticide is mostly when male bears will kill a female's cub. Very, very rarely will a female kill a cub, but really we're talking about males. And this is a very well researched and discussed topic, but another one of those where there's a lot we just don't know. There are a number of hypotheses about why this happens. One is that that it is related to sexual or reproductive success, and this is called sexually selected infanticide. There's a large study, and was a large study in Sweden about that, and there are other studies. Mike, can you talk a little bit about the research that's gone on about infanticide in bears?
Yeah, I mean, it's if there's one sort of fact that people know about bears, it's that male bears will sometimes kill cubs. Uh, it certainly happens, although explaining and understanding why it happens, it really is a different story. We know that male bears will sometimes kill cubs. It's not exclusively a male behavior, though. But really, it does seem maladaptive from the when you're looking at the perspective of the species. Why do you want to kill a cub that's a member of your own species? But it certainly happens. Um, and perhaps, like as you mentioned, the most common hypothesis to explain it is that idea of sexually selected infanticide. That's a male mating strategy that can be defined as males kill unrelated dependent offspring to increase their own opportunities to sire offspring. And it happens not only in bears, but in a wide variety of mammals. And it's probably evolved independently multiple times in mammals because it's been documented in hares, shrews. I'm just looking at a list here. At least one species of bat, lions, a variety of primates, even dolphins and horses, among others. There's certainly others where it's been described. There's evidence for it in brown bears. We know that male bears kill cubs, and most documented cases have occurred during the mating season. Female bears also can start their estrus cycle within days of losing a cub. So that is again something that suggests that if a male kills a cub at the right time of the year, female loses her entire litter, then that may increase the opportunity to mate with that female. Um, but another piece of evidence that this idea of sexually selected infanticide occurs in brown bears, Naomi, is that female bears have several counter strategies to protect their cubs.
Yeah, there are a few. With any strategy, there are risks and rewards to those strategies. One strategy we observe a lot around here is that females with cubs will stay in a place where they feel protected, which it might be around humans. So we'll see females with cubs hanging around camp or around the bridge, and certainly we've seen that with 128 grazer this year with her two cubs. Um, Another would be to try to limit where the bear goes, what her range is. And there are some very compelling studies about the range of female bears. And it shows that females with coy, cubs of the year, tend to roam a lot less than females with yearlings, and much less than females who are alone. And what that does for those females is that they're less likely to run into an aggressive male who might kill their cub. Now, the downside of those two strategies is that the females probably don't have access to the prime fishing spots, because the prime fishing spots are where the male bears are going to be. So another strategy would be for a female bear to fight off and defend her cub with all her might. And we certainly saw that with bear 128 grazer when she had her spring cubs. And this is her attacking bear 856. He is so much larger than she is, intimidates large bears like 747. Yet this was a strategy to protect her cubs. And I think this speaks to the risk and potentially the reward. Grazer is a great fisher at the falls. She's a champion lip fisher. So she wanted that access to the best fishing spot for her to feed her cubs. And the next year, and then last year, excuse me, with her current litter, we saw the downside of that strategy. She had a huge gash on her forehead, almost down to her eye, and um, and really got injured by that. And soon after that injury, she stopped being at the falls with her cubs so much. So she somehow weighed risk and reward and said, I to herself, I'm gonna go be at Lake Brooks, where maybe I won't catch as many fish, but my cubs will be safer. I'll be safer. So there are, a bunch of different strategies. There is a theory about another strategy, which is, as we said, females are promiscuous. And this theory says that because females can have cubs from more than one male in a litter, a male won't know which cub is his or not, and therefore he's not going to risk killing one of his cubs. Now, that's a theory. Some people subscribe to it. People around here in bear biology don't subscribe to it, but that is a theory there. So, reproduction in bears and certainly mating season is fascinating. It's complicated. We get to see so much of the behavior, but there's so much we don't know. Mike, do you have any further comments about the complex nature of infanticide and reproduction and mating system?
Well, one more thing that I kind of wanted to mention on this is that there's certainly evidence against sort of like this idea of sexually selected infanticide in brown bears. Not all cubs are killed during the mating season. And the studies that I've read haven't found evidence that male bears who kill cubs are more reproductively successful. That's one thing that scientists and biologists have really yet to parse out about this behavior. It'd be kind of tough to do. You'd have to demonstrate, one, that a male bear that kills a cub sires a litter with that female in the same year. So, and that, as far as I know, hasn't been demonstrated or at least documented scientifically. And sometimes cubs are not specifically targeted by males, but they're just kind of like killed as an accident of circumstance. So it's really just like being in the wrong place at the wrong time. We've seen at Brooks River several times. And bears are also, sometimes just conditioned to chase small furry things, especially things that look like food. Although I'm sure a bear is smart enough to differentiate between something like a ground squirrel and a bear cub. But if something's moving through the river and it looks small and furry, a bear is going to chase after it. So if a cub is vulnerable, then a bear just might have an instinct to pursue it. So there's really no clear-cut answer when we're thinking about the reasons behind infanticide, but we wanted to spend some time on it because it's certainly a topic and a question that comes up a lot, and it is one that is certainly tied to the mating season itself. And before we get to some audience questions here, Naomi, there's one more thought that I had on this idea of infanticide. I mean, it's definitely a difficult thing to watch. It's a difficult event to witness. It'll provoke strong emotions, even in me, and I really try my best to remain emotionally detached from the bears. Even though I love them, I really try to be emotionally detached from their lives. But so if it happens, it's going to provoke strong emotions. I think really the thing that's helped me witness this behavior is avoid judging the behavior on moral grounds, because bears are bears. Their minds, their rules of social engagement, they're not influenced by human morals. They're influenced by their own, whatever those might be. So I think we should judge bears on their own terms, but we lack a full understanding of what those terms are. So I think it's wise to be detached from that behavior as best as we can and refrain from judging whatever that might mean to us. It certainly means something very, very different for brown bears, but it's a complicated thing. We've covered a lot of stuff during the broadcast, on the brown bear mating season. But Naomi, if you're up for it, you want to try to get to a few viewer questions here?
Sure, let's do that.
All right. We've been keeping a list here, so thank you for submitting your questions. We'll try to get to a few of these here in just a moment. One thing that we hadn't actually maybe mentioned as part of like the basics of the bear mating season is when do female bears go into estrus? Naomi, can you talk a little bit about that process, the time of the year maybe it happens, and how long those estrus cycles last?
Well, females can go into estrus if they lose cubs during the season, sort of any time in the season, and go into estrus shortly afterwards. But usually it is in this early, the spring, June, early summer time of year. And Sometimes it happens later, but mostly it's in what we call mating season, and that's why there are two sides to why we have mating season. One is that the females are in estrus, and the other is that the male bears know that they're in estrus, and it's time to make new bears.
And I think another question that this is something that you partly covered, Naomi, as well. But to what extent does female preference matter? Will she accept the mate and then kind of like change her mind, or accept the courting male and then move on to try to find another one?
Well, the answer to the last part of that is yes, because we know that females mate with more than one male. And we do see things like young uh, young females mating with younger males. And also, it seems that like some of the more dominant bears are interested in some of the more fertile females. Now, this is just observation. Not, I haven't read the studies on this, and you may have, but I think that there is preference. What triggers that preference, and in a female bear's mind or behavior, I don't know. I haven't asked 402 about it, but certainly there is a process, and it does seem like she has some kind of biological or evolutionary choice here. What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those questions we would love to ask them, but we don't have that technology yet. Uh, we've seen a lot of examples of female bears being pursued by one male, but maybe actually kind of looking over, at a different part of the river and be like, I'd really like it if that guy will come over and hit on me instead. But sometimes that other guy is like, whoa, I'm not getting in 856's way. So we have sometimes seen female bears sort of try to evade certain males because it seems like they do prefer the company of another one. So I think there is some choice going on there. A lot of times they don't have the choice though. Like if you were like, there's only one male available to you, then you just kind of have to take what you can get in that sense. But we do sometimes see that. That's something to watch for this year. I don't think it was last year, but I think maybe in 2019, Divot, for example, she was going through her estrus cycle in early July, and 856 was kind of keen on that, and so was number 32 Chunk. And she really seemed like she wanted to be a little closer to Chunk than 856, but 856 is more dominant, so he may have. We don't know the conclusion of whatever happened there, but it seemed like he was actively displacing Chunk away from that mating opportunity.
Well,
And
and
there's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you talked earlier about size and dominance, and those factors very well may play into what we call attractiveness in our world, but in their world may mean I'm going to have cubs, and maybe I'm going to have strong cubs, and it's just, that however that translates, it's not necessarily a cognitive decision or thought, but you talked about it in other species. So I think that may play a role in choice as well.
Yeah, and it would be fascinating, I think, if we could somehow look more closely at the behavior of the bears at Brooks River when they're young, when they are subadults, for example. Chunk and Divot probably encountered one another as younger bears on the river before they were sexually mature. And so you wonder, like, does that familiarity translate to a greater tolerance when they're older, especially if you're a male-female pair for coupling? I would love to know that idea, but that's something that's unstudied as far as I know. But we have kind of an opportunity to maybe take a closer look at that on Bear Cam because there's so many people watching. We have all of those eyes and the hive mind working. Maybe we can find some bit of a correlation if a female happens to prefer the company of a dominant male. Is that because he was had experience being around her when they were younger? I just don't know. And most bear populations, we don't have that opportunity. They live at very low densities in other areas. We're really seeing kind of like a unique circumstance at Brooks River. So it's a fascinating thing.
So Mike,
Another
can
yes,
I
go
about
ahead.
one example of that? for the bear cam watchers to watch 821 and 901 because they're fairly young, and maybe think about their histories and if they've seen them together before they were mature. Just an example to think about.
Yeah, lots of things to watch and learn on Bearcam for sure. And another thing that you're going to see, and you're going to be able to watch on Bearcam too, is this behavior called cowboy walking. So another question in our queue here is the cowboy walk indeed a thing to signify dominance? And we have another live chat lined up for later this year, late in July, specifically about the bear hierarchy and dominance. But the cowboy walk is certainly something that you're going to see during the mating season. And it really does seem to be a display, not to show prowess or fitness to a female bear, but it's a behavior that seems exclusive to male bears to just show off to other male bears. Really, it's like walking around, just showing your muscles, trying to show other bears that you're big and tough. It's if you're not familiar with what that gait looks like, I don't think we have a video available because I wasn't expecting to be asked about it during this broadcast. But it's a very stiff-legged walk. They'll walk with very stiff hind legs. They'll grind their feet into the ground while they're doing it. They're often urinate while they're doing it. It often accompanies tree marking as well. And it usually happens like kind of right before or right after a dominance encounter between, mature adult males. So it certainly does seem to be a display to signify fitness and dominance. And it's something to look forward to when the bears gather in greater numbers along the river.
And Mike, I have also seen that displayed when a bear has wanted to display either ownership or dominance in front of us humans. I once encountered Bear 32 Chunk when he was trying to bed down, and then a bunch of other people came behind me and started to come close to him, and he was not happy. He wanted to go to sleep. He wanted that spot, so he started cowboy walking. So isn't just with other bears. There's something about dominance and ownership connected to that cowboy walk.
We talked about how bears can the courting process can last a long time, several days, maybe even more than a week. Somebody was wondering, Naomi, how many miles can a courting pair trek in a day? We've seen 856 chase a female all day. I haven't seen any documented, numbers, but I don't know if you have, but we can maybe throw out some rough numbers. Do you have an idea?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen any numbers either, but figuring that when I'm out there interpreting all day long, I'm walking 10 plus miles a day, and figure that their bears' days are longer than mine, and they're doing it for a long time. I don't know. Could they be doing it for 10 to 20 miles? What do you think, Mike?
I wouldn't be that surprised. I mean, they do move around quite a lot. So several miles per day. It really depends on, I think, where the female is going. If she's going a long way, the male is gonna be right behind her. So she's kind of making that decision on how much exercise they're getting during that courtship process. I think we might have time for just one more question here, and we'll try to get to the others. We'll try to type in the comments and answer those that we don't get to. But is there an age, Naomi, when female bears can no longer get pregnant? We haven't covered that.
Yeah, that is called senescence. When female bears can stop having cubs, and again, we're not quite sure about that. Um, I mean, look at Holly. She's almost the same age as Otis, if not the same age as Otis, and she has a cub. Um, we see um, we see female bears having cubs well into their mid 20s when some male bears, that's the end of their lives. It does seem to me, and I'm going to ask you about this, Mike, that Bear 410 was in senescence in her last years. For those of you who don't know, Bear 410, she was our longest living bear along the Brooks River, I believe. She lived to 29. That was the last time we saw her here. And she was still attractive to bears like 856, but she didn't have any cubs. Mike, you have any observations about that?
Yeah, it's tough to say, and I have to apologize for scratching my face. There's a lot of no-see-ums out this evening. In my location, there seems to be some evidence that very old bears can go through basically their form of menopause, but the evidence for that is limited so far, and probably most female bears don't live that long. I haven't seen studies or evidence that suggests it's the case in males if males go through that same process. So, in short, I think that bears might, but the evidence is limited so far, and most of them probably don't live long enough to maybe get to that point in their lives where they would experience that sort of thing. Naomi, it's been a great conversation tonight, and for the audience, if we didn't get to your questions, we apologize. We'll try to answer those in the comments shortly afterwards. But great conversation tonight, Naomi, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks. And I would say one thing to our audience: if you have children, or if you are of college age, there's a lot of research to be done as a bear biologist. So think about it.
Absolutely. Bears are, they're active for only 6 to 9 months each year in Katmai, and they get a lot done during that time. While hunger influences much of what they do, at this time of the year, many adult bears are pulled in a different direction by their hormones. And given how profoundly bears feel hunger, foregoing foraging opportunities to seek mates really does demonstrate how powerful an urge to mate, how powerful that urge can be. And the bear mating season will give us a lot of drama to watch, but beyond that, it's really one of the most vital times of the year for brown bears. It's a time of competition and conflict. It's a window into their remarkable biology. It provides clear examples of a process in which both males and females have something to gain and lose. My name is Mike Fitz. Thanks for listening and watching today. And as we like to say at explore.org, never stop learning.